Hey everyone, I'm Jeff Wieland, the host of the WB Download, and I want to invite you and welcome you to our podcast. My brother and I own and operate Wieland Builders. It's a custom home building company here in Southwest Ohio. The WB Download mostly focuses on interviewing folks associated with custom building. We stray now and then to interview people who I think are interesting and to break up the monotony of the same old podcast. I also like to highlight things that are going on in my everyday life along with our businesses. I started this podcast to help people understand the custom builder world, but to also give people a chance to hear what others have to say and highlight their expertise and experiences in life. We drop on the second and fourth Tuesday of each month with a new topic and or guest each time. I hope you join us here on the WB Download and enjoy listening and hearing stories of people in and out of the custom builder world. Welcome to the WB Download. Well, hello again, everybody. I'm Jeff Wieland with Wieland Builders here on the WB Download. Today is Tuesday, April 22nd, 2025. Thank you for tuning in. Happy Easter, everybody. This last weekend was Easter weekend. And man, I'll tell you, as I've been involved in church for the last 5 or 6 years, and I know I did not grow up in church, but I learned more about what everything means. You learn more about leading up to everything. You read certain chapters of the Bible leading up to Easter, Good Friday, and all the things that are happening, and the story becomes more real, and you understand how things have happened and why we're celebrating, so to speak, different things. So, it's just amazing to me how many people and the stories that we hear and the things that we do around Easter and Christmas time and pretty cool stuff. So happy Easter. Hope everybody enjoyed it. Hope everybody's had a great week, great spring. But hey, some things that were going on with us. I got back home last Wednesday from my Builder 20 meeting down in Wilmington, North Carolina. And, man, it was just I've said this before. One of the greatest things about our Builder 20 group is that I get to visit places that I wouldn't normally go. And Wilmington, North Carolina is a vacation destination. It's the guys building. We were visiting Tanner Conradi. It's Conradi and Son Construction down there, and Tanner's got just an amazing company. Him and his dad and his sister are just killing it. Tanner's dad was a builder, tool belt guy, and Tanner comes along and starts. He's a businessman, and he's just doing a bang up job, and it was just so cool to see all the stuff he did, seeing the houses that they build. It's these multi-level row houses, so to speak, that they're building them on a 40-foot wide lot, and just for millions and millions and millions of dollars for these second homes for people. Not always second homes, but a lot of the homes that are like that. So it's always neat. We had a financial speaker. We usually have a financial meeting. We didn't touch much on our financials, but we had a succession lady come in. She talks about selling your company, talks about retirement, talks about what money means to you and why you want it, why you need it. And so it was a really good meeting. And, we just got to see some really cool places down there. It started to get warm the last couple of days. Every morning, wake up, come downstairs and see the sunrise. Pretty neat, coming up across the water. But as I was down there, a lady that I went to high school with, her name was Regina Ehrman back in the day. Her name's Regina Cox. Now I had a chance. She lives there. So I had an opportunity to go to dinner with her and her husband. And I really enjoyed that, catching up. There's a group of us from high school that we put together our reunion a couple years ago. And we were all pretty close in high school, men and women, and there's a handful of us. And it was so funny that we've been out of school 32, 33 years now. And when we went to go start planning our 30th class reunion, one of the girls said, "Hey, this is, it's funny how, we were gone from each other for so long. And as soon as we get back in together and start planning things and working things, everybody just talks like we've all been together the whole time." So we were all really close and really cool to catch up with Regina down there. So, I come back home and we jump right into it. Cody's started baseball while I was gone. Had a game right when I got back. So he's training with a special pitching coach and a hitting coach, and then he's on his rec team there with Lebanon. And Raina is working on her sideline cheer, because before you know it, we're going to be playing football. And and the youth football team, aka the NCAA, which is what they think they are, have already picked teams, have already gone through a draft, and have started thinking about the season. So it's creeping up on us pretty quickly. So them guys stay busy doing that. We're also realizing that we're only a couple months away from the fair. So we had to do our quality assurance program on Thursday of last week. Which is where they go and they have to learn certain things about taking care of animals, nutrition, different questions, things that you wear around the barn, just to be safe, all sorts of stuff. So they were doing that last week, and we were like, man, we're having our next meeting at our house for our 4-H so they can do a demonstration on their animals. And we got to get that place cleaned up because we've had a long winter and things look like shit around there, and I hate it. So we got to get things cleaned up. We're moving things around on the farm. We're getting ready to haul some cows to the stockyards that we don't want anymore, and we are also breeding all the spring calvers, winter calvers. And something cool that we did is, since we finally got some beef that's about ready to be chopped, me and Cody and Raina and Mom there, we started a website the other night for the farm. And I'm sure that we probably could have done it a number of different ways, but when we went to GoDaddy.com and we set up a farm website, so it's WielandFamilyFarm.com, and we've got some generic pictures on there right now. But it was kind of neat to see Cody kind of taking the bull by the horns, and no pun intended, and just getting that thing started. And now we want to start selling freezer beef because we have the ability to do it, which is why we're here, by the way. So check us out when you get a chance. And if you guys want any beef, give us a holler. So the week before I left to go on our Builder 20 group, we closed on a house that we had down in Walworth. It was a house that we had. It was just got a long story to it. Horrible situation. I was getting ready to say some bad things about some people down there, but I'm just going to leave it at that. The only good thing that came out of that whole deal is the people who ended up buying that house are super nice people. They're just wonderful, wonderful people, and I'm pretty excited for them. Anyway, then we also wrapped up the house that we bought last year. That was the house that caught on fire, and it was a huge, huge deal for us to stick our neck out like that. And I told everybody in our Builder 20 group it was my way of being all in. And we did it. So the people that bought it, they moved in. Me and Cody were there working on it late that Friday night, and I left that Saturday morning to go to Wilmington. We got it all done, and people are getting moved in there. I shouldn't say we got it all done. We're still waiting on our cabinet crap that people can't get their stuff together and get it out there. But hey, who cares? Who wants to listen to that kind of stuff? But anyway, we signed 2 more contracts that last week there too. And so we're, pretty cool deal. We're getting ready to build for 2 brothers right next to each other out in stone pillars. Both of these houses are just so cool. So cool. And if I was to develop a big piece of property like that, this is the type of houses that I would want on there. And if I'm a builder, this is the type of houses I want to build. And both of these customers are really neat, really cool people, and they are so passionate about this project, just like we are. So it's going to be pretty neat. Jake is killing it. Jake from Wieland Builders is killing it here. He's on his 3rd week, and I'm just enjoying working with him, watching him just dive in. We were looking at a computer program that most builders use today. It's called Builder Trend. And we're looking at implementing that into our business. And it's a big step because I've been hesitant on it for a while. But now that we've got somebody to take it and run with it, we're going to get it in there. So those are some of the things we have going on around here in my life. But man, I got to tell you, today our guest is someone who is the most special person in light of Mother's Day coming up. We have my mom, Sue Wieland, on the show today, but also I want to make sure that you realize that we have my brother Mike here on the show with us today, helping interview my mom. And at the end of the interview, Mike and I are going to talk about him coming back and doing more stuff on the podcast here, get him lightened up a little bit, get him introduced to it. But my mom is just an amazing person. Anybody that meets her loves her and just knows right off the bat that she's just got a wonderful soul. And she raised me. And so I can't say enough about her, and always has been a really good friend of mine, a mentor to me. and an inspiration. And of course, we all work together. Me and her and Mike and my dad worked together, and for a short period of time, even Erin worked with us together. So as a family business. So that was something that it was tough to do, probably for all of us to work together. It was tough to live in a house where we're all working together, but it was also very rewarding. And I would never ever once think about complaining about my life, my childhood, or anything, because her and my dad had provided us with just an amazing opportunity in this world. And they're the reason why we are here today. So I'm really excited about hearing what she has to say, and just sitting down and talking with her. And I bet you that if we did this, and now that we got her and Mike in tune with this thing, that if we came back a year from now and we all sitting around having a couple of drinks and just started chatting, you guys would probably enjoy this conversation a little bit more. But we're going to find out about what makes her tick, where she came from, hear about her life with my dad, starting this business, what it's like to be married to a builder or a business owner. We're going to find out what it was like to be raised by my grandma and grandpa, which are, two of my heroes, and were two of my best friends growing up. And so it's going to be neat. So, hey, I could sit here and ramble on all day long about this wonderful lady, but and before I do, let's get into the interview. And I wanted to introduce my mom, Sue Wieland, and of course my brother, Mike Wieland, here on the WB Download. All right, once again, everybody, like I said in the intro, today we have none other than my mom, Sue Wieland, here today, and with her, and this is a special occasion, we also have my brother Mike, who is going to also interview her and during this podcast. So this is a big deal. We did this. The reason why we did this is because it's Mother's Day. And, of course, we always had you on our list to do an interview with you here on the podcast on the WB Download. So you're really nervous about this. What are you so nervous for?
I don't know. It's scary.
It's scary sitting down with your sons and having a conversation.
I'm not much of a talker, and I just hope I can remember a lot of things.
I was hoping that you'd have a couple glasses of wine, because usually when that happens, we can't get you to stop talking, and then we just. But I guess
then
that's not going to happen.
I might say too much.
Right, Mike? Do you want to say anything? Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Appreciate you having me on.
Oh, I'm glad to.
It's going to be fun to talk to Mom about the past and the future.
All right. So we want to know all kinds of stuff from you, Mom. I sent you some questions, and the top 12 answers were, I'm just kidding. So where did you grow up at? Where did you come from?
I grew up in Mount Healthy. We lived on Struble Road, which was actually north of Mount Healthy. At the time, it was kind of considered country.
Yeah.
Your dad always said he got tired of driving out there to pick me up, so he married me.
Was that why? Was Finneytown considered city? Because that's where he was coming from, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was from Finneytown. I guess it was surely more city than where I was from. When I was from New Burlington is what they called it. So I think he was probably a little bit more city. We lived on Struble Road all our lives. My parents lived there forever.
I was going to say, I didn't think they moved off of Struble Road ever.
Yeah, they had, 3 different houses up there?
Yeah, when they first married, they rented a little place in Mount Healthy, and then my dad built their first house on Struble. And then when I was 5 years old, we went up the street, and he built on like a 1-acre lot. And then
where Billy and Lori lived?
Yeah. And then I'm not sure what year I was married and gone, and they decided to build another house across the street on Struble Road. So they lived there forever, and then when it got to be too much for them, we talked them out of selling.
I didn't realize you moved up there when you were 5. So you and I both grew up in that house. It's I grew up in that house too. That's weird. I'm just kidding. She hates when I say that.
Yeah, because you always act like you're like grandma raised you.
At the time, that house didn't even have air conditioning.
No. Oh my gosh.
I remember sleeping upstairs and the windows open and all the fire trucks and stuff you'd hear go by.
You'd hear everything go by, and the crickets at night.
Yeah.
You just wait until 3:00 in the morning when it cooled down, and then you could finally go to sleep.
Well, growing up, I remember it was always cold, upstairs, and then we'd come down. They had registers on the floor, and I'd come down and sit in the corner on the register to warm up before, I had to go to school.
What was Rumpke's Dump look like? I mean, you guys lived on that road, and I mean, it had to be nothing.
Yeah, it was not at all like it is today. Yeah. I mean, I don't even really remember it much. It was just on the corner there, I think, and it's expanded so much today. But that really wasn't much of a subject. Yeah, like it is today.
I can imagine. There was a pony keg across the street. That was probably more conversation than the dump was.
Yeah.
What was school like for you back then?
Well, I went to Mount Healthy from kindergarten on.
Did you just go to the 8th grade, or did you graduate? Did you have a senior year? I don't know what they did back then.
I did go. Grandma only went to the 8th grade, but I did graduate from high school at Mount Healthy. And it was a small town. A lot of the kids went to the Catholic school for grade school was Assumption, but then they'd go on to like Macaulay or Roger Bacon or whatever. But the ones that all went through Mount Healthy, a lot of them, like me, went from kindergarten all the way to graduation. And we had reunions still, and it was nice. It was a small town.
Do you still stay in touch with anybody from high school?
Yeah, I do. There's one girl that she was my friend all through high school. We were like sisters, and I don't see her that often, but we do keep in contact. Linda, her name was Linda Kuhlman. Her dad was our history teacher. And
she was crazy.
Yeah, she was wild. We'll get into this, but I don't know. I don't understand this. I mean, Grandma and Grandpa were so low key and calm. You're just like this sweet lady, calm, but yet you had Linda Kuhlman as a best friend, and you married Dad, and they're crazy.
Well, I think
you have a wild side to you that you're not letting anybody know.
I guess you kind of, I don't know. A lot of my friends are like really opposite of me. Maybe you look for that. Opposites attract. Yeah. And I know, your dad and I couldn't get any more different.
Well, I married a vegetarian. I know what you're talking about. So what was you're in high school? What was Grandma and Grandpa doing? What did they do for a living? He worked at the knife company.
Yeah.
And then what did she do?
Well, she was one of the few mothers that did work. I remember she first worked there was a toy store in Mount Healthy, and it was called Trap Toy Store, I think. And she worked there, and then the hardware store was across the street, and she got to know those people, and they asked her to come over there and work. So then she went over to the hardware store to work. I don't know how much. I think she worked pretty much full time, because I can remember I'd come home from school, get off the bus, and we had a basement stairway that went down, and we hid a key, and I'd have to find that key, to get in by myself. I don't remember that, but
is that how buying the hardware store evolved?
Well, yeah. Apparently, Grandpa worked at the knife company, and I know he hated it. He didn't like it at all, but I guess that's what he had to do. And apparently, I wasn't real involved in all of that because I was still young, but I guess the owner of the hardware store approached Mom and Dad and asked them if they'd be interested in buying it. So it was a big move for them.
How old were you then?
I think I was in the 8th grade. It was in 1960. So I was...
13.
Yeah, 13.
Yeah, you were 7 or 8.
Yeah, and then they only owned it for maybe 8 or 9 years, but they liked it. It was hard work. I mean, it was long hours, and Grandpa, being the great person that he was, he would never tell anybody no. And I can remember people on the weekend would call our house and say, "Oh, I'm in the middle of this project. I need something," and he'd run down there or up to Mount Healthy and let him in and help him.
That was kind of all there was, right? I mean, obviously there was no big box stores at the time. I mean, if you needed something, it was there, and that was it, right?
Right. And there were 2 hardware stores in Mount Healthy, which was kind of strange. But I think everybody kind of liked Grandpa's way of dealing with them, and he was a friendly guy. But then, like you said, the big box stores did move in. I think Ontario was one of the first ones down in North College Hill. And that's kind of what killed him, you know.
But back then, people bought bicycles and skillets. And I mean,
guns.
You bought guns. You bought everything from the hardware store, right?
Paint. We had pots and pans. I mean, we had everything you could imagine. And I, myself, after I graduated from high school, then I would work there part-time, you know, but then I got a job. I worked at GE. I was what they called a secretary back then. But I'd go there and work on Saturdays. And the guys that I worked with at GE, they'd all tease me and say, "What's on special this Saturday?" You know, and I'd say $3.99 garbage cans. And then they'd all, you know, so it was kind of fun.
I think it would be fun to have a store like that. But there's we had Gary Sullivan on here last year, I think it was, and he was a big hardware guy and Hater Hardware, and they were nationalized and stuff. But there's only a couple of those hardware stores left that really do like what they did, and one of them's Marilee's out there, and they might even have sold out in Cleves, and then
Baker
and Baker's probably like that, and then those guys that own that Ace up there in Mason, even though it's modernized, they're still the same way because they've owned it for so long, and it's hard to find something like that. That
place even wasn't that big in Mount Healthy. You would think. I mean, to have all the things that they had, it was just a very small store.
Well, I think that we remember things so much differently when you're older than what you were when you were younger. And when Billy and Lori bought their house and we went back there for a party one time, I just remember that thing being like 20 acres. I mean, it just seemed like the backyard was forever deep, and it was always just like we were hitting baseballs back there. We were doing all kinds of stuff. And when you go back up there now, it's like a postage stamp. And the same thing when we would drive through Maria. And, I remember those parties that we would have over at Rudy and Maria's in the backyard. And it seemed like, oh, my God, that place was humongous. And it was nothing, when you go up there now.
Right.
That's crazy. So Grandpa was everyone's hero, right? I mean, he was definitely
he got
mine.
along with everybody. I don't know anybody that didn't like him.
Yeah, he's just such a great guy. Did you have anyone else outside your family that you looked up to? Anybody else that you would consider that you were looking up to?
Well, I don't know that. I had a big family. My mom had she was the oldest of 9, so I had a lot of aunts and uncles and cousins, and I think I looked up to them more than anything because we always had so much fun together, and they were always happy. And it just seemed like I looked up to them.
You guys did a lot of things together, right? I mean, you'd have a lot of picnics, I guess they called them back then. And I mean, I can't remember a Saturday and Sunday where Grandma and Grandpa didn't have somebody over to have dinner.
Yeah.
One of their friends or some of the family or us or whoever.
When we lived on at the big house, we always called it, they would have picnics, and we were always playing softball, and, and she cooked all the time. My brother had a lot of friends all the time in the garage because he was into the race cars, and she'd cook for all of them. They'd always be there. So,
Well, he was the favorite.
Yeah, I think so.
You think he was?
I don't know. I used to think so when I was young. I know when he married Donna, his first wife, she was the favorite.
Yeah, I remember that. When they got a divorce, Grandma sat on her side and went with her to get a divorce from her son.
I know. She was really, really upset. It really bothered her, but
she was probably upset because he had to move back in with him. Now she's got a house full again. It was. What's your greatest memory when you were growing up? Is it hanging around the family and doing those kind of things?
I think so. My Aunt Shirley and Uncle Kyle lived down the street from us, and I'd walk back and forth. They had Sandy was 4 years younger than me, and so we were really close. And I'd walk down there, and I just loved them, because Mom and Dad were more, I don't know, I guess they were working a lot and,
reserved.
Yeah. And Aunt Shirley and Uncle Cal would go places. Like they'd take me to the Swordsville Lake. And I remember there was a Everybody's Farm they used to have out there. I think it was out there on Tylersville. They would take me with them, and I would just think, oh, this is so neat, So I guess I remember that the most.
Yeah. For me, some of my greatest memories are definitely Grandma and Grandpa. Jake asked me the other day, he's like, where'd you learn how to back a trailer? Because I can drive just as good backwards as I can forward with a trailer on. And we learned on Grandpa's lawnmower in the backyard, backing it up and driving it around. But for me, too, is probably your group of friends that with Rudy and Maria and Tom and Tony and the Capriwas and the Westners and Tempers and that whole big group. You think about all the good, it was so much fun being around you guys. I don't know if we realized, all the fun you guys were having, but we were with the kids and it was amazing that I think the reason why we liked it so much is they all treated us with such respect. They'd have conversations with us and we'd have conversations with them, and it was just one of the greatest times ever. And how did that whole thing, did it evolve over time, or were you guys friends since the time you were younger?
Well, Dad was friends with like Jerry and Barry and Jim Tempfer. He was friends with and Tom. They all kind of hung out together in high school. So then when they started getting married and things, we'd get together, and the girls all got along too. So then we started, hanging out and doing things together at different times. You go through different stages of life where things happen. But then we moved into our first house on Maria. We moved next to Rudy and Maria. And that was quite an experience, because we liked them and they liked us, I think, and you kids all got along. And so they kind of picked up and joined the crowd.
Yeah.
That was another example of opposites attract.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
He was something else.
Yeah.
But they were both from Germany, or Austria, and they both, oh, man. But then, so Lutz's lived in that neighborhood.
And then Lutz's moved in. They weren't there right away. There was another couple there, and then they moved. And then Lutz's moved in, and then they kind of joined in. They fit in. I think we used to all go on these houseboat trips. And
how did that start?
Well, Jerry Capriwa always arranged them. He would start, all year long. He would plan what he was going to put in the cooler. But he arranged.
And all he drank was Bush.
We didn't work.
Oh, no, don't say that. But he would arrange them, and every year we went for, I think Dad said 25 years. I don't know, but
at least that.
Yeah. And every year, we look forward to that, and we'd go down to Lake Cumberland. Well, then Tom and Tony bought a condo at Woodson Bend. And so then I guess after Rudy died, we that sort of, was the end of the boat trips. But, that there was a lot of memories there. And then we got the bright idea for you kids to come one year.
That was a great memory.
Yeah.
That lasted once.
I think that's why you guys quit doing it.
I promise you that's why.
But that's, that I guess it started with Jerry, and he'll always be remembered for that. But
yeah.
It was fun.
The number one thing I remember Jerry from is because he would bring us the pudding cups in the cans.
Yeah. When he worked for Del Monte.
He worked for Del Monte.
He always had treats.
He'd walk in with those, and if I was the first one to answer the door, I took them up and put them in my closet so you guys couldn't get them.
Yeah. And then he worked for the meat place, and he would bring all kinds of packages of meat over, brats.
Yeah, he worked for, wasn't Cons, was it? It was,
well, eventually it was Cons. I don't know who it was at first, but it was at the end, it was Cons. He was always in charge of the brats and Mets, always brought them.
Yeah, Jolly Time.
They fell off the truck.
He worked for Jolly Time. Queen City. those, I mean, 4th of July and just whatever that pig roast was that Rudy did, and the boat trips and the ski trips.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, whenever Danny and we see them guys, and we're always saying, how in the hell did you guys afford that? I mean, the ski trips that we took and the passes and the equipment and the hotels and the travel, and I mean, good Lord.
The stuff Dad would break.
Yeah, all the stuff that the hospital trips.
Well, really,
Stitches.
I think that was our only vacations for a long time. I mean, I know we went to the races. We went to Daytona.
Yeah.
But
well, we went to the beach too, so we went to
one day.
Well, that was
one day.
The end of the
rented a dune buggy.
The end of the race. But
I think as a family, we really didn't do a lot of week vacations like that because Dad couldn't go.
He would never be able to get away.
Yeah, we did long weekend things like ski trips and trips to Cumberland and things like that. And
it wasn't expensive like it is today.
Yeah.
I mean, it was still cost a lot, but I don't think it was as expensive. And we were fortunate, that we could do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, they all did it. We had a lot of fun doing that. I mean, that was something you don't forget, all this like you were talking about.
You all picked it up so quickly. Rudy and Maria talked us into skiing. They kept asking us to go ski, and Dad kept saying, finally he said, well, I'll make you a deal. He said, you go to the races with us and then we'll learn to ski. And so they did. And then they took us up to Dayton, I think, Sugar Creek.
Yeah.
And Dad had an accident. He fell and cut his eye with the pole the first time he skied. But you kids, I couldn't believe how you picked it up. I mean, I remember Dad and I riding up the lift and looking over, and we saw Erin going down, backwards. And it was like unbelievable how quick you guys, I was very thankful that, you did that. I think
Rudy had taught us how to water ski before that, which really helped us on our snow ski and stuff. But I mean, man, he was probably somebody who was so influential for the kids anyway, because he'd rather been with us than with you guys. And
or I mean, his wife.
And if you wanted, everybody's like, you talk like a construction worker. I'm like, I think I talk because I was around him when I was a kid. He cussed like crazy.
Oh, I know. He did. He really did. But, Grandpa did too.
Yeah. But Grandpa was
the only person that I knew that could cuss in church. And no one thought he was cussing. That was just the way his demeanor was.
It was just a part of his language.
Lori says that. He's like, he cusses and it's okay.
Yeah. Well, Rudy was something else. He really was. But he cared so much about you guys, you know.
Yeah, everything.
I mean, he'd come pick us up on a Wednesday night and take you out to Brookville and go boating, and just always doing something like that. And but talking about cussing and talking about Grandpa, I was telling Preacher Ben this one day that when he was in the hospital and he was dying, and the pastor or whoever it was walking down the hallway, and I don't know how they predict this stuff, but they comes in and he says, you want me to say anything to him? And I said, Grandpa, this pastor's out there and he wants to know if you want him to say anything. And he says, well, goddamn, hell yeah, tell him to get his ass in here. I walks in and just like, okay.
He said the same thing when Dad asked him to marry you, right?
Yeah.
Said, well, hell, George, I guess that'd be all right with me.
Yeah, they called each other George for some reason.
And Aunt Donna.
Yeah.
We all had nicknames at one point.
Yeah.
Me and Johnny never had nicknames. All the special kids did.
Yeah.
He didn't like you because he couldn't remember your name, so he had to make something up. That's what me and Johnny tell her. So we had to So you think back? So we keep talking about your childhood, but I mean, when you weren't born yet, I guess, but probably one of their biggest struggles, Grandma and Grandpa, was when they had a baby and then he left, right? And he went to the war, and then he comes home, and then they have you. But what do you think that they ever struggled? I mean, did they ever have some ups and downs or tough times? Did you ever see that out of them?
Well, if they did, I don't think they ever let us know about it. I don't think. I mean, they never had a great amount of money. I know that. I mean, we were pretty, limited on things that we did. I always remember we had one Pepsi, and she would divide it between me and my brother, in a metal cup. We had this metal glasses. But I don't, as far as any struggles that they never let us know about it, and or else we weren't paying attention. But I think that it just seemed like everything went pretty well for them, except like everybody.
When you think of the things that they went through in their lifetime, from start to finish.
Well, Grandma was really poor growing up, and I think Grandpa was too. So what they had, they were so thankful for,
I think where you were going with it was, they went through like no indoor plumbing, from being born in a house in a cabin, no indoor plumbing through the depression.
Depressions and just all kinds of different things that they had to endure to survive. And
but then you see them, they come all the way through the era of the internet,
I know.
You remember that microwave they had? It was like, 36 by 48. It was humongous and
like one of the first microwaves ever made.
Yeah.
Well, so many times I think about what would they do today, because, you have to do all this stuff online, and you have to, even when you park, you got to get it on your phone, but it would have never worked, because we tried to get them a cell phone, and that never worked.
They lost it. You found it underneath the seat of their car. Well, we've all been fortunate to have them in our lives, but have people in our lives like Rudy and that whole group, even the ones that are still here today and just give you different experiences and life lessons. And, we learned how to entertain from those people. We learned how to have friends. I value friends. I think I get a lot more excited to see people than they are to see me. I grew up with that. And I think it was a great lesson, a great example. I try to find that with right now.
Oh, it's very important. I think it had a lot to do with our lives, together, that our friends were a big part of it. And it just means a lot.
Yeah.
I never had a sister, but I had a lot of friends, that if you needed to say something or call them or whatever, they were always
something you might not realize at the time too. Even though you guys did a lot of things together, you didn't realize how important those relationships would be at the end of the the end of the day.
What was the conversation like when you were graduating high school with them? Did you think about going to college, or was that not even something
I cannot
then?
ever remember anybody mentioning college to me.
Yeah.
I wasn't a great student. I was average, but it never even entered my mind. Back then, I don't know that I knew all that many of my friends. I knew a couple of the girls went to nursing school but we all got jobs. So when I think about it, it just wasn't part of.
Did you get your job right out of high school at GE, or?
Well, when I first got out of high school, I had a job at an insurance company. And it wasn't really what I wanted. And I think I was only making like $37 a week or something. And then,
did better than I did this week.
Yeah. I forget what I was going to say.
Sorry. You were making $37 a week working for an insurance company.
My brother, Jim, he had his friend, Roger Retley, you remember him? He worked at GE, and he told me that they were hiring. So I went over there and interviewed and got the job.
Roger worked at GE?
Yeah.
When did did he just do that mechanical thing like later on, or?
Yeah, later, much later.
Oh, I thought that's all he ever did.
No, he worked at GE.
Huh.
So then I got the job, and I was making $75 a week. So that was really something, when I moved up, I started out like in a pool and, but I kept moving up. If I would have stayed, I probably would have really made.
Think about how well you would have done.
I know.
Didn't you have a GTO?
Me?
Yeah.
Did you?
Dad did.
Oh, Dad did. I thought you did.
Well, I had a Firebird. I bought a brand new car. I think it was, I don't know if it was a 1968 or 69 Firebird. I loved it. And we got married. I, of course, had a loan to pay on it. And when we got married, he made me sell it. Because,
first thing to go.
Yeah, because his car was paid for.
I guess I remember the story wrong. I thought you had the GTO and he made you sell it, but that wouldn't make much sense.
I had to drive it because I had to sell my Firebird, and then it was a stick shift. And it was horrible.
I can't, you've driven some cars that, I mean, for the first part of your life, you didn't drive a car that was under 38 feet long. Good Lord.
Lincoln's, the hood was as big as the trunk.
Oh my God.
You remember that? Childhood. Put 30 bodies in the back.
Yeah.
You had to have a come along just to get the hood up on it.
You remember when I got my head stuck in the sunroof at the bank?
Oh, that was
and that
the
one
Lincoln.
That was the red Lincoln. We were in the bank, and I stuck my head out the sunroof, and I think it was either Jeff or Erin pushed a button, and I was stuck in there.
I was going through the drive-through at the bank, and you were sticking your head up, and they pushed the button, and
then we didn't know which way to push the button to open it back up, so I was stuck there forever.
I didn't know what to do because I was afraid I'd hit the wrong button. You all sat in the back and you'd all fight all the time, and I'd threaten, to turn around and go home, but we never would. But
you were a good threatener.
I know.
We was fighting on who was going to sit on. Remember, we'd fight to see who was going to sit on a hump all the time. Sit in the middle of it.
Well, when I think that we went to Florida that time with you three in the back seat. All the way.
Yeah, that was
an Eldorado.
An Eldorado.
A two-door.
Two-door Eldorado.
What year was that? That was probably like 82.
Not stopping.
Yeah. We packed sandwiches.
The whole way.
We still do
that. Man. Well, I mean, all those things. But so let's talk. We're talking about Dad for the most part, because if it was us, we would have just took 6 days to get down there and not packed a sandwich at all. How did you guys meet?
Well, we hung around a place down by UC. A bunch of us would go down there called the Inner Circle. A lot of friends, would go down there, and they had a band. And he was down there, and somebody I knew from high school knew him. They had transferred from Finneytown to Mount Healthy. And
is that where you danced in the cage?
No.
What was that?
No, that was later. But
she told my kids this story about they were in a club one time, and there was a fenced-in cage, and she was up there dancing in it. And my kids think that's the neatest thing ever. Like, Grandma used to dance in a cage.
Well, you told Derek Calloway that you did that, or you dance on a table, and every time he sees you now, he's just like, start dancing.
Want me to make you a cage?
When I worked at GE, a lot of us went to Princeton Bowl. It was, in Tri-County there. And they had a great lounge, and they'd always have live music. Well, when the band would go on a break, they would still play music, and they had a cage up there. And I just got up there and danced. I always liked to dance, and I had I would have a long wig, and go-go boots. So I was really something.
Now you know where you got your dance moves from.
That's right. The Wieland Shuffle started as a lower shuffle. There we go.
But anyway, Dad and I met at the Inner Circle, and he asked his girlfriend, if I was there, and da-da-da, and he asked me to go out. And, well, actually, if we go back a little...
There we go. That's right.
He sat down at the table. I was there with my friend Linda Kuhlman, and another... In fact, I think it was Linda Mavis was there, too.
What was her name?
Her name was Linda Higgins.
Linda Higgins.
And Dad sat next to my girlfriend, Linda, and he asked her out first. He took her out first. Oh. Yeah. But then the next time he asked...
She was smarter than you, huh?
Yeah. Couldn't fool that one. I'll move on to the next one.
It just wasn't a match. But then he asked me to go out. Well, I said... it was a Sunday afternoon. He must have had a date with somebody else on Saturday, because he dated every girl in Finneytown, I think. But
come on.
He asked me to go out on Sunday, and I said, well, I could, but my mom and dad are having their 25th wedding anniversary, and my aunt and uncle are having a party for them, and I have to go. Would you want to go with me? That was Aunt Nancy and Uncle Walt. Sure, he said he would do that. So he not only met Mom and Dad, but he met all my aunts and everything that day.
That was all the first time meeting, all that at one day.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Oh, hell.
But guess what else happened? You know how he loves dogs and everything. Well, they had a little dog called Wiener was the dog's name. And he reached down and the dog bit him.
Imagine that.
And the hand.
Probably tried to grab it by the snout.
But yeah, he probably tried to grab onto it, pulling its tail.
So that was our first meeting.
What do you think's wrong with that damn dog? Does it bite everybody?
So I don't. That was our first date and our first meeting, and it went on from there.
And that was at your house on Struble? They did that?
Or was it
It was at Nancy and Uncle Walt.
Oh, was that their house?
They lived on Pool Road at the time.
Huh. Yeah. I remember that house too.
Shannon will say the same thing, that when we were set up on a blind date and we were at what's those people's name that was our heating and air conditioning contractor back then, Jack Maynard.
Yeah.
And they had a Christmas party down there at the Cooker on Fields Erdel.
Oh yeah.
So we had a couple beers in us, and John's like, call her, John Fitzpatrick. He's like, call her up and tell her to come down here. Let's see what she's all about. And so she agrees to come down here. She doesn't realize that everybody's there. So before me and her ever met, I think she met you first, and then she met our whole family and met all of our friends and everything. She was pissed. I didn't know she was going to come out and go back out with me the next day. But yeah. So what did you like about him? Again, you guys are like talking about the opposites, and did you like it because he was kind of he was a cool cat. Yeah, I mean, your brother was like, when you talk about the suits and the greasers, your brother was a greaser, and what was Dad? Was he a suit or was he a middleman?
Well, I don't think he was a greaser. He was.
You don't think?
He was a challenge. I mean, I dated another guy before him, probably all through high school. He lived up the street from me. And he was really, really a nice guy. He was almost too nice because I wasn't very nice to him.
Oh, wow.
And I don't think, I needed somebody that gave me a challenge, just like we say a lot of my friends, are so different. But he had been places, he had done things. He was much more, what should I say? Diverse.
Outgoing.
Yeah. Outgoing. And he was a good talker, I mean, I don't know. We just hit it off, and of course it wasn't without problems. I mean, we went together 3 years and we broke up probably 4 or 5 times. He would get mad at me, and
because you wouldn't come to the Rustic Tavern.
Yeah.
I don't know why. Who wouldn't want to do that? Well, I was wondering what the first time was that he met Grandma and Grandpa, and wondering what their opinion was, or I mean, what did they say? Yeah, what did they say after they met him?
Oh, I think they liked him,
Well, they did not like anybody.
Right. I think, and he, I probably shouldn't say this, but his mom and dad. Don't ever
start a conversation out like that.
You might have to edit this.
Okay. All right. Let's talk.
His family had a little money, and they lived in a beautiful home. And I think Grandma and Grandpa thought, wow, that's really good, that I would pick somebody like that.
Getting off the mountain. There you go.
But, as it turned out, they got along great. Dad and my dad and your dad, they got along great. I mean, they even went into business together for a while. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's a whole nother conversation there. I mean, when I was just wondering, like, at that first couple times, did they have a conversation? Because you don't know, in a small town, you get kind of, everything gets there before you do, when you're from a different town. You don't have Facebook back then. Nobody knows anything about anybody.
Right.
They were like, I heard about this guy.
Not everyone's like us, Jeff.
Yeah, right.
Those Wieland boys.
Yeah, those Wieland boys. Without the F word in front of it. It's just those Wieland boys, not those effing Wieland boys. That makes a difference of how that conversation is going to go.
Very true. Very true.
So when you I don't know what was he doing then? Was he driving a truck for Claude Carmichael probably back then?
He was into he was into the building. His dad was a realtor, and he was also he had gotten into the building, and I think he was where he'd build a house and then he'd have to wait till it sold to build another one. So when he was doing that, then he started driving it. When we got engaged, I know he was driving that truck for Carmichael, but he had his first closing, or he had a closing. I don't know if it was first. I think he and his dad actually built a few smaller homes together too. But his very first closing on his own was like the day before we got married. And his dad was a realtor, so he went to the closing with him. And they went and had a drink, and everything afterwards. So that was like the day before we got married. So we had a little money in the bank then.
Yeah. Wow. That's big time.
Yeah.
Who did Grandma and Grandpa pay for your wedding?
Yeah.
Because that's tradition, right? I mean, that's what happens.
Yeah, they did actually. Huh. Of course, we didn't have anything, elaborate, but they paid for it. Our reception was over at Copeland Grove, the first one that was on Winton Road. Yeah. And there was no air conditioning. And I think the day we got married, it was 105, in the shade. So, and they would let you bring your own liquor, Grandpa. And the funny thing was, Grandpa picked the band out. So it was kind of...
Lawrence Welk.
Back then you had live bands,
Trumpets and harmonicas.
It was pretty much Lawrence Welk.
So I guess when I'm thinking back, like looking at this and he's building the house and closing on it, but it's not Jack H. Wieland Builders. It's not any of that stuff yet. And so then he just it's a timeline, I think, and if I remember right, it's him and your dad and his dad go in as official business and start building apartments together, right? Or not?
Well, yeah, he continued to build on his own. And I wasn't really part of it, when I was, because I had my own job, so I really wasn't part of that. I don't think I really understood what was going on, but he built his own. And then I guess after we were married for a while is when he and his dad build apartments together. They would find a piece of land and build an apartment. But then I guess they decided one day that the three of them would go together and build, I guess that was the Erin Knowles apartments. Yeah. There were 3 buildings there. And, they formed this corporation called WLW because it was Wieland. Laura built Wieland.
Was Gold Top Ice Cream there before or after you guys bought that piece of property?
I think it was always there, if I can remember.
That's a good landman right there, if you ask me. You buy a piece of property across from Gold Top Ice Cream, I think you're going places. I was just wondering, like you guys are living in an apartment. In all of our lives, that's all we talked about is building houses and working. And not all we talked about, but 99% of the time that's what it was. And just didn't know. I've got this vision in my head where he's building houses and you're working and you're talking about building houses all the time. But there's got to be that stress, that freak out stuff, like when you build a house and it sits there too long. You have this ups and downs and different things. Was it? And that's the way it was when we were growing up. So like if you guys are just freshly married and you're learning about each other, plus you're learning about this business and shit falls apart and things come back together. I mean, how do you deal with that? Well, in the beginning, I know how you dealt with it.
I guess I am a pretty easygoing person and you almost have to be, but there were times, when it was hard, it really was. And I mean, your dad's always was very conservative. And I have to say...
What?
Unless he wanted it.
Yeah, unless he wanted it.
I always said unless it had a motor. But he did always watch his money. And a lot of our friends would always say... they'd make fun of him kind of because they said, well, he's still got his first communion money. Well, we were never Catholic, but he did save for a rainy day because he knew there were good times and bad times. And I credit him with being successful with that because as we all know, it can go the wrong way.
Yeah.
But I remember, when we built our first house, he couldn't even afford a lawnmower. He used to go down the street and borrow Jim Tempfer's lawnmower. But that's just the way he was.
Right.
He could afford it. He just didn't go buy one.
Well, that's
just
true.
Waiting for the deal.
He was waiting for it to go on sale at Lowe's Hardware.
But there were, you always knew there. And we went through a lot of good times and a lot of bad times.
Yeah.
There were times when you were worried to death that, you weren't going to even be able to make payroll or whatever. But the good times, then there were good times, but you knew that they were going to come and go. And so you saved for the bad times. And I also think that we were smart in diversifying a certain way, like with the apartments. We had the apartments, which helped. I always got the quarters out of the washers.
Right.
So when did you enter into the actual business part of it?
Well, I'm trying to think. I know you were only like 3 months old when we moved to our first house.
Which was on Maria there in New Burlington.
And I kind of remember, at night, when you kids would go to bed, I'd do the bookkeeping all by hand, of course, at night. And I had a manual typewriter that I would type the contracts. They were like one page.
I think we still have a typewriter that just because we kept it just for fun.
Yeah. And then you had to use carbon paper, and then you'd have to erase, it was, so those are old memories, but I think that's when it started. And I wasn't full time, but we weren't that big at the time. Then when we moved to Ross, we had our office in our house because I remember we had 2 phone lines.
Yeah. I still remember the numbers.
Yeah.
Do you really?
Yeah.
Dad would always
3521 and 3061.
Yeah, 3. Yeah.
Oh gosh, I didn't remember that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, we had 3 because Mike had his own.
That's right.
But that's a story for another time.
Yeah, that's not.
It's So you guys. I mean, is he just doing it, or is there discussion to say, hey, we're going to start this business and this is what we're going to do?
I don't think I was ever.
Like there's had to be a celebration point today. Hey, I'm going to start this business and we're going to call it.
Well,
Jack
he was
H.
really
Wieland
all the
Builders
way. He was really always in the business. It just grew. I think I don't know that I was ever asked. About it.
I'm sure that.
And even if
I didn't say you were asked, I just wondered if there was discussion. Hey, this is what I did today.
I mean, I always knew if things weren't going right. You always knew what was happening.
We all knew.
We all knew. Yeah.
I wasn't even born yet. I knew.
I think probably when we decided to move out of the office, out of the house, and then buy an office, that's when we discussed it quite a bit.
Yeah.
And that was probably the best thing.
Really?
Well, yeah. I mean, you had to have a place for people to meet. People would come down to our house, and that wasn't always the best. But
yeah.
Well, that was also at the time considered. You talk about thinking about the country. That was
way out there.
Yeah, at the time. Now it's nothing, but
it's not. No.
Yeah, you think about that. That house probably wasn't more than 7 or 8 miles away from Struble Road. I mean,
right.
But it felt like a half-hour drive.
Yeah, everybody's like, "Oh my God, you got to come all the way out here."
Ross.
Oh, yeah. I know. Ross was, and I would remember when I drive up that Coleraine, get up top of the hill, I felt like I was finally in civilization.
Yeah, we did. Well, I mean, that's where we hung out at. We were heading up there for the big time to go to the mall.
Yeah.
Walk around. That's fun. I think that one of the biggest things that you have to try and do, like you're talking about moving the office up to Ray Norrish and getting it out of your house, and it gives you a little bit of separation. And I think that's one of the toughest things that I have with Shannon and I call her during the day is not to start bitching, just to start, whatever I'm talking about, whatever I'm thinking about. And I'm like elevated and, just to separate that and have a different conversation. And that's something that I'm not sure if that's just the way this business makes sure, if that's the way I was raised and listening, not bitching, but I mean, you're always talking about building. You're always thinking about building houses. That's it.
Yeah. That was our whole life, and I mean, if we wanted to go somewhere, it was always like, well, I just don't think we're going to be able to go, and then we would finally go. But there was so many things to consider. And back then, Dad did a lot of the work himself too. It wasn't like everything was subbed, we did a lot of the work.
His friends, I think, still think he does that.
So he wasn't always.
He's going to get pissed if he listens to this.
He's going to be mad at you.
Good for you guys, right? So I mean, there's with all the ups and downs of it, I mean, you Myron said at one time, he knew it was coming. Like, when it's slow, it didn't have to worry about it. He knew it was coming. And I don't know that it's coming. I'm always like, we're busy. But then I start looking 9, 10, 11 months down the road and thinking about what that looks like. And we've done the same thing, after the recession. We learned right away, and the hard way is that, we want to take our money and put it away. And if it comes back, then we've got the ability to float.
Right.
Hopefully, I don't know how long we plan on floating, but we got the ability to float. And it's something that he's taught us, something you guys have taught us, is to be conservative on that thing. I think that's one of the things that builders have a name for, is just going and doing stupid shit with your money, because, you sell a house for $1 million, you don't make $1 million on it.
Right.
And you get a lot of money in your bank account, and none of it's yours. And so that we learned that through the years. And I think that's the biggest advantage of growing up in this business, was just being through that whole cycle, and understanding that kind of stuff. So, I don't know. I mean, I think about, what it was like. We always admired you for everything that you do for the company, and being part of the company. We always said that Dad could have retired a long time ago. We needed you to stick around because you were the one that knew where everything was, and all the stuff. You did selections, and you were always doing something. And so, you didn't have internet. You didn't have a lot of those things to learn all that kind of stuff. When you were picking these things up, like, how did you learn it? Did you just have a taste for it, or did you go to different learning educational seminars? What did you do to figure all these things out?
I don't think so. I don't ever remember going to anything. I always enjoyed, decorating and different things like that. But we never even had a computer for a while. Remember, I did everything by hand.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it. I think at times when we were selling a lot of houses quickly, it became quite a task. And then I'd have to still, go home and do things there. But I think I had a lot of, we had friends too that we made and that were also in the business. And I think that talking to different people, different friends, that the way they did things, and you would pick up from that.
Yeah, I think that's kind of what we do too. And there's no better thing to do than surround yourself with other builders, other people, other business people. And even like, when we talked to Matt Loader, he's running a boat business, and we're building houses, and we're comparing notes on ways to run businesses. And that's always super important. I had a question for you that Jake brought up before, and do you remember what job? We go by job numbers for some goofy ass reason instead of going lot numbers and addresses and things. But what job number did you guys start out with? Do you remember? Mm-hmm. When I got here, it was 320. The first house I built was like 320.
Yeah, I don't. It was one. It was in the 100, I think, because I think like 133 or something might have been one of the houses that we built.
So you think he started with 100?
I think maybe so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's amazing. I can't believe how you remember all those people, like you remember the people you built for in Ridgevale, and you remember those people.
I can't believe you remember the job number you started with.
Yeah, I do. I remember that house. That's awesome. I do. It was,
I think that...
I'm not going to tell you what job number I started with.
Yours was a little bit longer before mine was.
I took a hiatus.
When we were down at Terry Seaver's retirement party, and remember Irma Dries remembered all of she had a little box with all of their employee ID cards in there, and she remembered all those people.
I forgot about that.
Terry was there so long, she's like, he was number 141.
Well, that's a perfect example. She worked in their company. Linda Buchert, she worked for them. Mary Ann Fitzpatrick worked for Carrie. I mean, and so many of us, got together and talked about it. I mean, because we had the same similar lifestyle.
You did a lot of that through the HBA too, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Trips and and meetings and things of that nature.
Education.
It was hard to get used to that because in the very beginning, a lot of my friends' husbands came home at 5:00, and they take their kids to the park or whatever. Well, that just wasn't me, and I just couldn't figure this out. Well, how am I going to live this way? I mean, and until you talk to other people that live that way, it was quite a comfort. I think, Linda Buchert and I traded stories quite a bit, and it helped to know. And then you get to a point where you think, well, it's never going to be the way you thought it's going to be, but you got to pick out the good things, you know?
But that's how you were raised too. His grandpa, he would come home. Hell, he'd come home for lunch sometimes, and then 4:30 he was done for the day.
Yeah.
And he would come home and do all that kind of stuff. And my wife Monica, she's the same way. Her dad, he had a job, and he was home every day at 4:00, and they ate dinner together. They did this. It's not like that at our house, and that was hard for her to understand.
Yeah, it's hard to get used to that, but I guess you do.
Especially when you come home at 2 a.m.
I was going to say, instead of 4 p.m., it's 4 a.m.
Some of those jobs take a little more.
All we can say is...
It was a tough one.
Really tough customer on that one.
That's amazing, the similarities of what we're talking about with our friends and with other, but people are always surprised to hear how me and other builders are friends, and that's the way we were raised, in being in a home builders association and having all those people, because I always say we're all screwed up. I mean, these builders, we got such a screwed up personality. We are all bipolar, because you're talking to all these different people. One minute you're elevated so much and you're cussing and screaming and carrying on, and the next minute you're turning around talking to a gazillionaire that runs a huge company, and you're being like, "Hey, how are you?" and you're being nice to them. You've got different people that work for you, and you're tiptoeing. And I think we all do that, and that's probably how that comes about. But so let's shift gears. Let's talk about parenting. What was it like to raise me and Mike and Erin? What was it like to raise Mike?
Hell, I know I was easy. That's right. I was never there.
It's unbelievable that all this time's passed, and sometimes it's sad because you forget, how things were back then. And I know Dad doesn't want to hear this, but I did a lot by myself.
Yeah, for sure.
Because he was gone working and everything, and I'd have to take you to practice, or pick you up, but I did it, and then we had that farm, you might call mini farm, where we had the animals and 15 cats, and we always had a dog that ran away, and
stupid ass Irish setters. Whoever put that. Oh,
we still have one.
Oh, but what made you guys move out to Ross?
Well, we were in the Mountain Healthy School District, and that was going downhill, and I knew I wanted to get out of there. And Dad always wanted land. To me, I wanted more than anything to have a place where you kids would have friends pretty close by. So that really sold me, because there was a subdivision right behind us.
Yeah.
Because I didn't want to be out there, without you guys having somebody to talk to or play with. And so that's what...
You mean like me?
Well, when I said that, I was thinking about that. But I think back then it was different. I mean, you weren't involved in so many things. You got home, did and ran out the door to play. I mean, Erin practically lived next door, remember, with Michelle? I mean, she was always over there.
Oh, yeah.
And you guys were friends with Sean and Darren a lot.
Yeah, that was a great place to grow up. We had a lot of fun out there.
Yeah.
It was, like I said earlier, it was really rural then. You knew the policeman by name, and that kind of
Dad
stuff.
had a horse. I guess he had the 2 horses then.
Yeah.
And that he was boarding somewhere, so that was perfect, And then we put a swimming pool in, so that was nice, And of course, it was a big new home, so it was good. I can't say that I was thrilled about being there at first. A lot of our friends lived out in Montgomery or. And when we'd want to go somewhere, it would take us forever to get there, and then you had to turn around and get home. But It was a good place to raise you kids. I think the school district was good.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I enjoyed growing up public school, being out in the country, and made us who we are.
Right, right. And you still have friends from them.
Yeah.
Well, then, Mike, you married somebody that went
now
to
I live
school
back
there.
out that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So what it was like raising you. I don't think we ever had any real problems with you guys.
You can talk about it. It's fine.
Other than jail.
You can talk about me and Mike.
You did fight a lot, and I remember, I was at the office, and every time you get off the bus and I'd get a phone call either from you or Erin or, they're hitting me and, but you did fight a lot. I remember.
I don't know why.
I remember one time Dad had to break it up.
Yeah.
Well,
but it's normal.
I mean, I think about parenting and whatever experience kids had with their parents. When you become a parent, you realize that anybody is doing the best that they can. They're doing the best with what they can with what they've got,
right,
and what they know. And there's no book, that tells you how to do it. And you have to have certain values. You can take, just like anything else, you can take the good things that you learn from your parents and apply them. You can take the bad things and do the same thing. Make sure that you don't apply it. Make
right,
sure that you're going different directions. And I think you guys did a great job. You did a bang up job, by the way.
Yeah.
Well,
Mike
I think
turned out great.
We did a lot of dangerous stuff when we were kids. Dirt bikes and horses and three wheelers and the stuff we did out there. I'm not sure that some people would be able to.
I can remember looking out the window and seeing you guys driving those dirt bikes around like crazy and jumping and doing wheelies. And I don't know how I lived through all that. And I mean, there's a lot of things that I probably, and I think it's normal for a parent or a mother especially to feel guilty about things that didn't go right, or you should have done this or you should have done that. But I don't know. I like you said, we did the best we could, and
not everything's the same. Just like the houses we build, not everyone is just the same. So it's not easy to do, and Jeff and I are learning that.
Well, I think I was so busy trying to take care of different things. A lot of times, I wish I would have maybe spent a little bit more time, with Erin especially, but that's just the way, it is. And I think, the one thing I think that is such a rewarding thing is to see you all with your own kids and to know that feeling. I mean, did you ever think that you would love anything that much?
Yeah,
I mean, it's just so wonderful to see you all raising your own kids today.
I think that's probably the most amazing part for me is that you think you date people, you get married, you do all these different things, and you think you love something or somebody, and you have no idea what that means until you have kids,
right? And
then your heart is just open wide just for everything that they do, and that's one of the biggest lessons it's learned for me is that when you I don't want to be on the phone when I walk in the door with them. I'll stay out in the garage and be on the phone. So when I walk in the door with them, it's because they're jumping and we're high fiving, we're doing all kinds of stuff, and you just try and forget about everything else and make it about them and make sure that they know that you're proud of them and that you love them, and it's so much fun.
And it shows because I can see with your kids and your kids the way they feel about you. It's a great feeling, and the same with Erin. I mean, her kids are crazy about her, so it's a good feeling, and maybe I did something right.
Maybe plenty. You did plenty right. I mean, you're a lot like Grandpa. I mean, I think that you have that same personality. And I told you this a long time ago when we were at a Reds game. Me and Cody were there, and then you and Dad happened to be there, and we went up to see you. And first thing Cody does is jump up, sit next to you, and starts showing you something, talking to you. And I said, I feel like he has that same relationship with Grandma or with you as that I did with Grandma. We were always, them guys always made fun of us because they were fishing, and me and Grandma were up in the front of the boat playing crazy eights. But it's important to have that connection. I mean, I think you're the leader of the families. You and Dad are, and you're the one that got us all here.
Well, I hope so. I hope that when we're not here, that it keeps going.
Where are you going? Oh, that's right. You guys have a place in Florida. You live down here.
No. I mean, when we pass.
So I mean, I don't necessarily. I have this premonition almost about our kids. I worry all the time that something horrible is going to happen.
Yeah.
Because you've seen it happen to other people. When we were in high school and even when we were in grade school, there was somebody that died once a year. Whatever it was, and you just freak out about it, and you never stop worrying about it. When JoJo passed away, I was looking at Joe Senior, and I'm like, man, JoJo was 60-something years old.
Yeah.
It never ends.
Yeah.
It never ends. I mean, you get all the way to that point, you think you would have made it. But I
can't think there's anything worse than losing one of your children,
or your parent. I mean, you just, it's all crazy. So what were the highlights was there any highlights of raising us? I mean, was there anything big that you remember and you were like, oh, thank God, or oh, that was great, or oh, that was horrible?
I was trying to think about this, and certain things stick out in your mind, and you're happy. Like when your kids are excited and happy about something, it makes you happy, And I was thinking about you, like when you got your first car, how excited you were. And I remember you when you made the basketball team in junior high. I mean, you were just so happy. And Erin, I remember her running down the steps because she made cheerleading, And it's like those things stick out because you're so happy for them because they're happy. And I know you feel the same way about your kids.
Yeah.
But as far as, I think we touched on our vacations, our skiing and our going, to Cumberland and stuff like that. Those were highlights. But I remember too, it was always nice, and maybe not for you guys, but when we lived in Ross and we'd all be home and we'd all be outside working, like it wasn't always fun, taking the pool cover off and you'd see it flying through the air. But when we were all there and we were all working together, I think that was fun. I remember that.
I think those are special times for me, is when we're together as a family, the four of us doing something.
Yeah.
Whether we're eating dinner or last night we were at the 4-H thing at the fairgrounds, and whenever we're together doing stuff, I think that's so important.
Well, I was very thankful for you too. A lot of times, like when Dad would get upset about things, the lawnmower wouldn't start, and then oh, thank God, he came over and started it,
I probably never had any of those moments because I wouldn't put up with that shit. I hated it.
Well, you that's true. Mike does. He listens to him and puts up.
But I tell you what, we were out working cows the other day, and there's nothing that makes somebody more crazier than anything is working cows with somebody. And they make T-shirts and they make fun of it all the time. But there's something that comes over you when you start doing it. And I'm throwing a fit, and I'm just having a cow, and I'm cussing and carrying on and calling them all kinds of names and throwing shit. And I get done, and me and Cody are sitting in the truck. And he just is like it's some other day, no big deal. And I look at him and I'm like, he didn't buy these cows. I don't even think he wants the cows. I think if he had his druthers, he'd live in a neighborhood somewhere. Yeah. And I'm sure he'd probably rather be doing something else. And then on top of that, I'm insane. I'm like, I'm going to sell every single one of these guys. This is crazy. I do not want to be that person where you just lose your mind and your kid is over there either freaking out or thinking you're crazy. And that I think I've done it. I've gotten there. I think he thinks I'm nuts.
We've all been there before.
So what advice would you give somebody for patience in parenting, or just in parenting in general?
Well, I think it has a lot to do with just your makeup. I mean, I get upset about things, but I handle things pretty well. And I think I've always had to. I've always had to keep everything together because things would go crazy. But I guess if I had to say, you have to listen to your kids, which, I know that's, everybody knows that, but it's just the way you make things. I was never one to like confrontation, as Michael's the same way. I don't like that. I mean, I know it takes like, and I think that Dad and I together made a good pair because he had to do the dirty work just like you have to, I mean, I could have never fired anybody or yelled at anybody. I just never liked that. And then I didn't like it when we'd get into a fight or an argument or not just Dad, but even you kids. Yeah. I didn't like that. I mean, I couldn't handle it. I still don't like it. I don't either. And I wanted it over with. I think I could get over things really quickly, because I can't tell you how many times Dad and I had an argument, and it was always me that went up to him and tried to get him to start talking to me again. Now
I know where I get that at. I probably caused the argument, but I'm also the first one to go back and say, so I'm sorry.
But I think you got to be patient and you got to be forgiving.
Yeah.
And it's, and you just love them and you go with your heart.
You just say the same thing about, I mean, what's your advice for marriage? I mean, you've been married, how many years you guys been married?
It'll be 56 in June.
Yeah. What advice do you have to give to somebody to make it 56 years?
Well, everybody is different, I have friends, that they'd say, well, I just tell him to do my butt. Well, you don't do that with Dad, You have to learn how to, when I keep forgetting he's going to be listening to this.
I'm able to do it.
I forgot it a couple times too.
I think that you and I have the same skill that you can just let it go and not let it bother you as much, even though he doesn't mean it, but he says it anyway, or whoever. I mean, in any marriage, I mean, I think it's that way.
Well, I think he, especially Dad, as soon as you say something, he jumps in there and says something. And then he's going to think about it, right. And then come back with it. So I just kind of sit back and wait, He's
going to learn your secrets after all these years.
I know.
I don't know. I feel like marriage and even with kids and everything like that, it's no different than running this business. You constantly got to be teaching yourself how to handle situations. You've got to be learning about the other person. You've got to be learning about other things. You got to learn how to communicate. You can't. I don't know why when we relate running a business to yelling and screaming and arguing and firing people, because that's not what it's about.
Yeah.
And I feel like when I get to that point, I've given every patience that I've got for a long period of time, and then it's like somebody's just being a complete asshole, and me screaming at them's the opposite of me hitting them, Yeah. but I that stuff is not. Because you have to do it doesn't mean that we like to do it. And I think that's probably one of the biggest misconceptions. I mean,
thank God that there is somebody that will do it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, if I've got to fire somebody, I hate it. It'll eat me up for months and just, I can't stand it. But if somebody's being an asshole and they want to go at it, and I'm on all day. We'll scream and we'll take it on. But not necessarily, we're talking about in business, not necessarily in marriage. So would you say, what's your advice? The patience and the forgiveness and.
Well, it's a lot different,
understanding.
When you're young and you're raising your family and you're running a business. I mean, it's a lot different than it is like today. Today I'm with your dad 24/7. And I mean,
do you ever hold the flashlight for him?
You don't get this way. I mean, there was so many times that he wasn't around that I had to learn to do things. I had to go ahead and get it done myself.
Meaning he was working.
He was working. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And then he got involved with the home builders, and he was in a lot of meetings. But I don't know. I think patience has a lot to do with it. But like I said, not everybody is patient. Like I'm thankful for it. But then at times I think maybe I'm just like people walk all over me because of it.
I don't know if that's necessarily the case. I mean, I think that you have to you have to learn about the other person. I think that's something that nobody knows, nobody learns, nobody understands when you first get married is that, you know, and I'm based on what I saw growing up, you know, and so I get married and she's going to do whatever I tell her to. And when she gets married, she's like, he's going to do whatever I tell him to. And I mean, all the way down to what kind of Christmas lights we're going to put on a Christmas tree. And it's a fight. And I'm just like, well, what are you talking about? I mean, this is my decision. We're going to do this. And that's not the way it works. And it takes, I mean, you just have to give it so much time and patience and energy to understand this through the years. And I mean, we've been married 17 years and I still learn every single day about it. So, but I mean, I don't think that you get walked on. I mean, even Pastor Will said about his wife, he's like, I have to be careful with her because when I want to do something, she could just say yes. And I have to come back and say, are you sure? Because, you know, you don't want to just take advantage of it and keep rolling on, you know?
But then there's a lot of things that I really don't care. You know, if you want to do that, it's fine. I'll do that. You know, I really don't care. There's a few things, you know, that I will put my foot down. And I think as older that I get, like I don't ride motorcycles anymore.
Or go 100-mile-an-hour in boots.
Yeah. And be thrown on the floor.
You don't hang out at the dirt track at Florence Speedway on a Friday and Saturday night.
Oh, with the mud in your eyes.
Oh, man. What was that like? I mean,
man. That was another thing. I mean, you know.
Did he ask permission to buy that?
Yeah.
Race car?
Did he tell you he was going to buy a race car?
Yeah. I don't know how well, it came at a time where, you know, I think we needed something together like that to.
You turning wrenches?
No, just a project. And he was so excited, and I know you kids liked it. And
we still do.
But
yeah, I do too.
It was, you know, we spent a lot of money on that, and we weren't as successful as others because we weren't willing to put our entire life savings into that, you know. But it was an experience, you know, and but there was the racquetball club. You know, he liked playing racquetball, so we had to buy a racquetball club. I
think, you know, that's one of the lessons that I feel like I've learned through watching all that stuff is just be careful of what like decisions you make. I mean, and Shannon's good at you know, we're talking about what we're going to do and different things. Of course, the farm, I sit there and say this, I turn into a hypocrite. I mean, I look at the farm and I'm buying stupid shit for that all the time, but I don't want to make a decision and think that this is going to be the next move. I look back and say, I'm a builder. You know, I mean, this is my job. And if this is what I do, this is what I do. I don't need to do anything else. I don't need to jump around and worry about trying to jump into something else. But man, when we got done with Dad's podcast, he was the first one on the WB Download, of course. And I was talking to a couple different people and they're like, good Lord. I mean, he's done everything. Everything. Yes. And Mark Durker said, he goes, I went home and drank a bottle of whiskey. He said, my life ain't worth a shit. So, I mean, it's always been interesting. It's always been something. It's been a life that only people can dream of.
Well, he's a worker, man. I mean, that's
he's
all
a hard worker.
You know,
he really is. And it's
got to be busy.
And he still tries to work like crazy, you know. But
if he had his druthers, I think he'd be here to, you know, working today.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. It really,
but we've had a life.
We have, and I always trusted him. You know, I trusted his judgment in business and money. I never worried that he was gonna, you know, spend something that we didn't have because he never did.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think I just trusted him, and we went with it, and it was quite an experience. But you know, when we sold that club, it was like the weight lifted off of my shoulders.
I just had one of those last week.
Yeah.
Selling that damn house down there.
Yeah.
Oh.
The closings, that's one thing I have to say. Whenever there was a closing, it was the happiest day in our house.
Yeah, for sure.
That's one thing since we switched our model and how we do things with the customers carrying our loan and the way we finance it, we don't close anything anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, we go out and sign some paperwork, but there's no big checks there. I mean, we get paid all along, so there's not a big celebration at the end, but it's that, that's something that was always a big thing. So, well, hey, do you have anything else you want to talk about, Mom?
No, I know we've talked a long time.
What about you, Mike?
I'm good. I think I enjoyed talking to Mom and there's some things I learned and I think Dad's going to be pissed.
I think he's going to be pissed too. I think he's going to be mad. Do you think you want to come back and do more, Mike? Do you want to come back and do more podcasts?
I would. I enjoy it.
Okay.
Yeah. As long as I don't have to be in front of people, I'm good.
Yeah. All right. And we can drink beer the next time we do one.
That's fine by me.
I think Leanne will be excited because now this gives us some ammo to think about our next podcast we're going to do. Maybe when we do Johnny's, we should do it together.
Oh, you didn't do that one yet?
No, he didn't. He canceled on me.
Imagine that.
I know it. So, Mom, so in light of Mother's Day, this is why we're here. And
yes.
we wanted to do it last year, and I don't know, things got away from us. You were probably gone in Florida or something, or whatever. So, But thanks for being here. Thanks for being our mom. Thanks for being a wonderful leader and an inspiration in our lives, and just getting us here and always being somebody that we can lean on and depend on and to teach us. You've been awesome. And
now you're going to make me cry.
I might start crying.
Maya said that you were going to cry on this.
Me or Mom?
Maya said that Mom was going to cry.
Well, I appreciate you having me, and I can't tell you guys how proud I am of both of you and all my kids, really. I mean,
we thank you for all you've done for us, too. I mean, this is, they always say there's going to be a chair in heaven for you, and I believe that.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
The saint.
She's a saint.
Too. Yeah.
I believe that.
A wonderful person, just a wonderful person all the way around. Everybody that meets you loves you, and I feel the same way. So I love you. Thank you. Happy Mother's Day.
Thank you.
Happy Mother's Day. Love you.
We're glad you're back.
Too.
We're glad you're back. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning in to the WB Download. Thank you, my mom, Sue Wieland, for being here, being our guest on the show today. In light of Mother's Day, happy Mother's Day. Thank you so much for everything you've ever done. Thanks for being here. Thanks for taking time out of your day to be here. And thanks for coming home from Florida specifically to do the WB Download. I know you're going to have to fly back down to Florida tonight and get back to your house. But hey, anyway, thank you so much. Thank the audience. Thanks everybody for listening and tuning in to the WB Download, and the next episode will be the second Tuesday in May already. Man, we're rolling right through the year, and I'm not really sure who the guest is going to be yet, but we're going to work on that when we get to that point. Don't forget to subscribe to the WB Download on your favorite podcast service, and don't forget to check us out on YouTube so you can see everything over there that we're doing, and go back and listen to some of these podcast episodes. I think that it would be really neat if you went back and listened to my dad's, which was the very first one we did, and then come back and listen to my mom's and compare notes on how our lives have been. It's been a fantastic life that we've had, especially because of both of those people and the opportunities they provide us and the love that they've given us. So they're really awesome. So don't forget, we drop on the second and fourth Tuesdays of the month. And if you want to be part of the conversation, send me an email at wbdownload@wielandbuilders.com. That's WIELAND builders.com. And if you want to check out more of what we do here at Wieland Builders, go to our website, wielandbuilders.com, WIELAND builders.com. Thanks again, everybody, for being here on your WB Download. I'm Jeff Wieland.